My father demanded I name my firstborn after him, sneering. You owe me that honor for everything I've done for you. When I chose a different name, he stormed out of the hospital, declaring, I'm disowning you for this insult. His smug expression shattered when the lawyer read his will and stated, Actually, your child inherited everything, and you've just lost your last chance at reconciliation. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, my father, Richard, was a dominant figure in my life. He held strong beliefs about family traditions, especially the importance of passing down names through generations. He often said, It's a matter of respect and legacy. As a child, I didn't think much about it. But as I grew older, I realized how deeply he felt about this tradition. He expected me to name my firstborn son after him. It wasn't just a suggestion; in his eyes, it was an obligation. During my college years in Columbus, I met Laura. We connected instantly and over time discussed our future together. One topic that came up was children and the names we'd choose for them. Laura believed that a child's name should be a joint decision, reflecting both parents' feelings and hopes. I agreed, but I knew this would be a sensitive issue with my father. When Laura became pregnant, we were thrilled. We spent countless hours discussing names, considering their meanings and how they resonated with us. After much thought, we decided on Ethan. It felt right for us, symbolizing strength and new beginnings. I knew I had to tell my father. One Sunday afternoon, I visited my parents' house. My mother welcomed me warmly, but there was tension in the air. My father was in his study, reading. Dad, I began. Laura and I have chosen a name for our son. He looked up, expectant. It's Richard, right? I took a deep breath. We've decided on Ethan. The room grew cold. His face hardened. After everything I've done for you, you can't honor me in this one way? I tried to explain our perspective, how we felt it was important to choose a name that resonated with both of us. But he wouldn't listen. If you go through with this, he said firmly, consider yourself disowned. I left that day with a heavy heart. Laura and I welcomed Ethan into the world without my father's presence. My mother visited discreetly, but my father remained distant. Years passed without contact. Then, I received a call from a lawyer. My father had passed away. At the will reading, I was shocked to learn that he had left everything to Ethan. Despite our estrangement, he had been following Ethan's life from a distance and had a change of heart. This experience taught me about the complexities of family, the weight of traditions, and the importance of standing by one's convictions. While I wished for reconciliation during his lifetime, I found solace in his final act of acknowledgement. When the lawyer said Ethan was getting everything, I didn't speak. I sat there, numb. My hands were cold and my stomach twisted. My mother gasped, covering her mouth. My cousins looked confused. My uncle, Dad's brother, frowned hard, like someone had just kicked him in the gut. Nobody expected that. The lawyer kept reading. My dad's house, his business shares, 2 retirement accounts, land in West Virginia, and some antique coins he used to brag about, everything, all of it, was under Ethan's name in a trust. Laura and I were named as guardians of the trust until Ethan turned 18. Not a cent to anyone else. Not even to my mom. That's when things got weird. My uncle, Brian, stood up and started shouting. That's not right. Richard promised me the land. He said it was mine if I kept managing it. The lawyer didn't flinch. Your brother updated the will 2 months before he passed. Everything you're saying isn't in writing. Brian stormed out. My cousins followed, whispering. My mom stayed frozen. She didn't say a word. Later that night, I tried to talk to her, but she just stared out her window. He never even told me, she whispered. The next few weeks were chaos. Uncle Brian called me nonstop. First, it was questions. Then came guilt trips. Then threats. You think that land just manages itself? You think you earned any of this? That little boy didn't even carry the name. Your dad was proud of his bloodline. You ruined it. I stopped answering his calls. Then the letters started arriving. Legal letters. Uncle Brian was suing to contest the will. He claimed my father wasn't in his right mind when he made the changes. Said I influenced him. Claimed Dad was manipulated, that I poisoned his opinion, that the will was fake. We had to get a lawyer. It got expensive fast. Laura and I were burning through our savings. We had to pay to defend the will that gave everything to Ethan, a will I had no part in making. It was surreal. And then one day, something strange happened. I got a call from an unknown number. A woman's voice on the other end said, "Meet me at the diner on 5th. I know about your dad. I can help you." I hung up. It felt like a prank. But I kept thinking about it. That night I couldn't sleep. At 7 a.m. the next morning, I drove to the diner. A woman in her 60s was sitting in a booth by the window, wearing sunglasses and sipping coffee. "You came," she said. "I wasn't sure you would." "Who are you?" She took off her sunglasses. "My name's Alice. I knew your father. Very well, actually. I was his accountant." My heart started racing. She pulled out a folder from her bag and slid it across the table. "There's more. Your father had other assets. Hidden ones? Offshore. Real estate. Bonds. A separate will. One he drafted after the one you just saw." I blinked hard. "What?" She nodded. "And in that will, he named someone else." "Who?" She leaned in. "A boy named Matthew. 17 years old. He's your father's other son." I couldn't breathe. She slid over a photo. A teenager. Tall. Light brown hair. My father's eyes. Alice whispered, "Your dad kept a second family." Quietly. For years. I stared at the photo, my throat dry. And now? The second will might surface. If it does, everything could change. Including Ethan's inheritance. Suddenly, this wasn't just about tradition or names. It was about secrets, lies, and a storm waiting to explode. I didn't know who to trust. I didn't even know my own father anymore. And I wasn't sure if Ethan would keep what was given to him, or if we were all about to lose everything. I left the diner with the folder in my hands and a pit in my stomach. The weight of what Alice had said felt like a brick on my chest. A secret family? Another son? Offshore accounts? Another will? I didn't tell Laura right away. I couldn't. I needed to be sure before I dropped that bomb. That night, after Ethan was asleep, I sat in the garage with a beer and opened the folder. Inside were copies of bank statements, wire transfers, emails, and a copy of the supposed second will. It looked real. My dad's signature was there, along with the date, just a month before he died. In that version, most of the estate went to Matthew. Ethan's name was nowhere. It didn't make sense. Why make Ethan the heir in the first will, only to change it all later? Unless he got scared. Unless someone found out and pressured him to rewrite everything. The next morning, I called the lawyer who had read the first will. I told him what Alice had said and asked if he'd heard anything about a second will. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That's not possible. Your father sent me the final version directly. I confirmed with him the day after it was signed. If another will existed, it would have had to go through me. Unless someone intercepted it," I said. He hesitated. "Or destroyed it." Now I was spiraling. Who else knew about Matthew? Why didn't my father ever tell me? Was he ashamed? Was this blackmail? And who the hell was Alice, really? I called her again. She picked up after the third ring. "I figured you'd want more answers," she said. I met her again, this time at her office, a dusty space above a laundromat. She pulled out more files. One of them had photos. My dad and a woman, maybe 10 years younger than him, in a cabin. Same cabin he owned in Pennsylvania. They looked like a couple. In some photos he had his arm around her. In others they were with a little boy, Matthew, Alice said. He bought the cabin under a shell company. Everything stayed off the books. The woman's name was Sarah. She died 2 years ago. Car crash. I blinked. And Matthew? Lives with his aunt now. But when Richard updated his will, he set up a trust for Matthew too. A quiet one. That's what got me involved. He asked me to hide the paperwork. He said there was going to be a lot of noise after he died, and he didn't want Matthew caught in it. I didn't know what to say. My father had gone to such lengths to keep everything secret. He must have known the storm it would cause. And still, he let Ethan be named in the public will. That's what didn't make sense. Why not just include both boys? I asked. Alice sighed. Guilt. He told me he failed you. That he tried too hard to control your life, and it pushed you away. Ethan was his way of saying sorry. A clean slate. I left the office more confused than ever. But it didn't stop there. The next day, I found a letter in our mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single sentence written in block letters. You're being watched. Drop the fight, or your family will pay. I froze. I showed Laura everything. The will. The photos. The letter. She didn't say anything for a full minute. Then she said, "We go to the police." The cops took the letter, but they didn't do much. They said unless there was an actual threat or harm, there wasn't much they could do. I knew better. Someone was getting nervous. Someone wanted me to back off. And I had a feeling it wasn't just Uncle Brian anymore. The more I looked, the more things started to unravel. Turns out, my father's business partner, Dennis, was involved in setting up the offshore accounts. Dennis was the one who signed off on the transfer of some assets weeks before Dad died. Alice gave me emails, coded ones, but I recognized enough to know Dennis was hiding things. So now, I had a potential second will, a secret son, a shadow trust, threats in my mailbox, and a former business partner who seemed like he was cleaning up loose ends. The final blow came when Ethan's school called. They said someone had come by, asking questions. A man. Claimed to be Ethan's grandfather. They showed me the security footage. It was Dennis. Now this wasn't just about money or names or pride. It was about keeping my son safe. And I didn't care what it cost. I was going to find out the truth. I pulled Ethan out of school for a few days. Laura and I stayed up late planning next steps, locking every door and window, even checking our car before we got in. I never imagined needing to protect my son like this, from my own family, from my father's world. I met with our lawyer again. We had to act fast. If the second will surfaced, Ethan could lose everything. If someone tried to prove Dad was manipulated, the entire estate could go into probate hell. I asked the lawyer a simple question. What if we go public? He didn't like the idea at first. But I told him. They're not hiding anymore. We shouldn't either. So I made a move. I called a local journalist who covered corruption and family legal battles. I gave her everything, photos, files, letters, recordings Alice had. I didn't care anymore about keeping it quiet. The article hit a week later. Headline: Secret Heir and Hidden Fortune. Town mogul's double life exposed. It went viral locally. People were stunned. Everyone knew my father. Nobody knew he had another kid. Or shady investments. Or that he'd left everything to a grandson he barely knew. Then everything exploded. Uncle Brian's lawsuit collapsed in court. The judge said the will was clear and legally sound. My uncle lost badly. And the judge even sanctioned him for trying to interfere with a legal trust. He ended up owing us legal fees and looked like a fool in court. But Dennis didn't go down that easy. After the article dropped, investigators opened a case into tax fraud. They traced money through fake companies and found Dennis at the center. Turns out, he'd been using my father's trust to launder money. Even the offshore accounts weren't just about hiding assets. They were being used to cover up years of financial crimes. They arrested him a month later. During the raid, they found another set of documents, copies of letters from my father to Sarah, Matthew's mom. That's when it got worse. One of those letters was a confession. He said he knew Matthew wasn't his. He said he had doubts all along, and Sarah never confirmed anything. But he loved the boy anyway. He supported them quietly, not out of duty, but guilt, because he had made promises to Sarah and couldn't walk away. The second will? Fake. Dennis forged it. Alice was working for him the whole time. She never worked for my dad. She was Dennis's fixer. The whole diner thing, the folder, the threats, it was a setup to make me panic, to push me into settling, into handing over control of the trust to keep the peace. She disappeared after Dennis's arrest. No trace. The files she gave me? Mostly fake. Twisted just enough to confuse me. But one part was true. My father did feel guilty. In his real final letter to the lawyer, found in a locked safe, they found something he had written weeks before he died. It said, "I chose Ethan because I failed with my son." If this letter is ever read, then something went wrong. And to my son, I know I was hard on you. I know I tried to force you to carry my legacy. But I watched you raise Ethan from a distance. You gave him love without conditions. That's something I never gave you. This trust is not for me. It's my apology. I broke down when I read it. I hadn't cried through the lawsuits, the threats, the second will. But that hit me in the gut. In the end, the truth came out. The estate stayed with Ethan. The family split wide open. We moved out of Ohio. Started fresh in Oregon. Quiet life. Simple. Safe. I still think about the damage my father caused. About how his pride, his secrets, nearly tore us all apart. About how I almost ruined everything by reacting, by panicking, by chasing ghosts. But I also think about the look on Uncle Brian's face in court. And Dennis being dragged out of his office in handcuffs. And maybe it's petty, maybe it's not noble. But it felt right. My father made a lot of mistakes. So did I. But in the end, Ethan got to be a kid again. And that's the only name that mattered.